You know, you're doing. Welcome to Soul, Light, and Body. It is such a beautiful day because you know why we are here once again, and we are giving the chance to correct the course. And today we have such a beautiful topic, concrete the cosmic. And we have a wonderful guest here this morning who is going to really dive deep and help us to understand more about your inner self, your self worth, and listening, how listening is very important. Because by listening, by we pausing and listening, we get a lot of answers. So we just want to welcome you to the show this morning. Just sit back, relax, have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, your green juice, and grab a notepad and a pen because you will have some tools from Zen that will help you on your journey here this morning. So I'm Karen Pascal, holistic health and wellness coach, and a co-author of two ebooks with my sister Joan Williams, also a hard copy magazine and a digital magazine. And I'll now hand you over to Miss Joan Williams.
Hi. Thank you, Karen, for that as well. Um, Good morning to all of you. How are you guys doing today? Where are your thoughts? What are you focusing on? Because it's a new year, 2023. Where are you at this point? Or do you have someone who is like an accountability partner and hold you and add value in your life so that you can continue to grow and expand every day? Or are you being that partner, accountability partner for someone else and continue to add value to their lives? Because we all need help in some way or the other so that we can live our best, be our best. Are you setting your intention? Are you stepping into your power and greatness? This is 2023. And we all want to bring the best out of us. We want to draw out all the dream and the vision and what we aspire for to be our best. So it's great that you can join us today because we have guests. So sit back, relax, comfortable here where you can zoom in and take all of this good stuff that Zen has to offer to us today, and so that you can move forward with this guide and open your eyes to new insight, new perspective, looking through life through a different lens. My name is Joan Williams, holistic health and wellness coach and co-author of two ebooks as well. And I want to thank you guys who inform us that you have received the mailing magazine. It's good stuff, a lot of healthy stuff that can help you to live a daily life with real good quality and continue to live your best life. So our guest today is Zen, and he's going to bring such good value to us today because it's the starting of the year and we can take what he's going to offer us today and move forward and maybe add some of the stuff to your life so that we can always continue to live that special life. So, Zen, welcome to the show today. Thank you for saying yes. And we know that you are so great because you're an author, you're a coach, you're an educator, you're a facilitator, you're also a host, and so many things that you're doing that is helping the world move forward and making a difference, making an impact in the world today. So we thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're
Well,
very welcome. And thank you for having me.
mhm. It's great
Well,
to be here.
life's been really great for me. It started off what others might think of being rather catastrophic. And I was orphaned at birth and then adopted at 6 weeks. And from there, my life was just wonderful. I knew love unconditionally from my parents. And uh, it was such a, gosh, just an opportunistic childhood growing up in a small town and with good people. And my sister, my adoptive sister, came to us. I was 4.5, and my parents then decided it was time to tell me about adoption. And at 4.5, I don't know that kids are really prepared to wrap their heads around what that really is. My head and in my mind, I went into a bunch of questions right away. Who are my biological parents? Who are my real parents? I didn't use biological because I didn't know that term at the time. Who are
Right.
my parents? Why did they give me up? And I'd been attending Sunday school, and so my next question was, do I have a father and mother in heaven, and can I talk to them? And that precipitated a voice that came maybe a month or two later, as I was standing looking on the landing of our stairway, looking out over the front porch. And it was after dark. Dad had gone to the store. He was coming back with ice cream. So I was, excited for that. And I was just had my elbows in the windowsill, my chin on my hands, and looking out, not really thinking much of anything. And then all of a sudden I hear this voice that says, "Hey, you," in the most deep, resonant, powerful, yet friendly manner. And rather than engage it kind of startled me. It didn't frighten me, but I knew it was loud enough that my mother should have heard it. So I spun around and I asked her if she heard the voice. She says, "Nope, didn't hear any voice. Must have been a peeping Tom." And we had one. So um, I realized at that time that it was inside and that it was up to me to figure out how to deal with it. So that began my life. So normally there's a question or two there. Um, to assume the questions, I went on to have a very rich inner life and experiences, out of body experiences, trips to orange cigar shaped clouds that I happened to be able to watch from a distance and then become one with the participant and go into the cloud. I'd wake up in the bed the next morning, couldn't wait to go back. And that happened from when I was 8 to 10. And then at 18, I'm in pre-med at Ball State University, and I'm rather distraught because I realized that there is something more, and I'm not quite sure what my mission or purpose is, and I'm really wanting to know what truth is. So I hit my knees, prayed to know what truth was, and was willing to die for it. And be careful what you ask for, because it's going to come. I wasn't prepared,
True.
and yet I came back from class one day and did the obligatory album side meditation. And during that, I was approached by this voice asking me if I was willing to die for what I believed in. And after I clenched for a moment, because, when you're confronted with that kind of question, it kind of brings you to a dead stop. And so the first thing that I thought of was Christ consciousness. It felt a little empty, and I wasn't sure why. Didn't question it, just moved on to cosmic consciousness. And that felt full. So I said yes. And then there was a guitar riff on the album. It was Journey's first album. And it sounded like a rocket ship taking off. And at the same instant, I get a tug from my solar plexus and I pop out of my body, and I'm looking at my body laying across my dorm room bed. And then I turn to look where I'm going. And before I get turned around, I'm engulfed by white light. And it's this pure feeling of home. And then I realize that it's a really high-pitched sensation with an iridescent, effervescent feeling that went along with it. And then I realized I was thinking. So if I'm thinking, I can't be dead. So that was a realization that there is no death. Consciousness moves on, however it does. And then as an impetuous teenager, I got bored in the white light. And I thought, wow, is there more? And lo and behold, I feel a movement. I'm in an indigo background now with points of light surrounding me, and could have counted them had I had enough time. before I could get the question fully formulated as to what they were in the wording in my head, I understood they were points of light, not just points of light, they were points of consciousness. Whether in body or not, I wasn't sure because I knew I wasn't. And then the voice picked back up again. And this is what had blew me away then and still manages my life today. It said, these are those that you're to work with in order to facilitate a new world order. It will happen in your lifetime. Know this to be true. Your path will be full of trials and tribulations. Understatement. Have faith and trust that everything you need will be there at its appointed time. Trust and allow. And then I felt another rush of energy, and I'm back in my body taking a big gulp of air. I went back and timed it later. It was 2 minutes and 42 seconds. So after that, I've remained with my eyes closed and just reintegrating with my body. It was this just amazing sensation that ineffable. And then I realized, oh, we're all cosmic consciousness condensed into form. We're just not aware. And so that started my journey of inquiry at a far deeper level than most go. And within the next 9 months, I read the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, Rig Vedas, part of the Urantia book, some of the Quran. I'd already been a Bible student, right? So I'm looking for references in all of this. And what I came to find out was based in Vedantic philosophy and the unity consciousness of which the white light is. And yet there's threads of that are individuated in these physical forms. So we're all connected. So here's some ancient knowledge that went, whoa, for me, like, gosh, we've had this all along. How could we miss it?
Right. It's right.
And then trying to articulate that as a teenager, man, I blew it. I couldn't. And the following year, I had a passion for starting to play drums again. So I bought a couple of drum sets, put them in my dorm room, spent half my room in board money, ended up having to move out of the dorm, found a house in Muncie, middle of winter, had no heat, no running water, had electricity. So I had some baseboard heaters and things, and I stayed there for a bit. And then one morning I wake up, it's 77 below zero wind chill factor. I hitchhike into school. I go to school that day. I don't know how to get back to the house. So after midnight, getting kicked out of the women's dorm that I had a friend in, I knock on a frat house door looking for a place to stay warm. And a friend of mine opens the door up. He's in my statistics class. And long story short, I ended up getting beat up there because I didn't fit. I was long-haired hippie. Most of the rest of the guys were jocks. I got in the hospital. Instead of taking me home afterwards, my parents decided it was time for me to have a rest. And I thought that it was going to be an overnight stay for possible concussion and observation. Turned out they put me in the psych ward. And so I went from the psychiatrist that I saw the year before, after I had the white light experience, who said, "Oh, you've had a spiritual awakening. Why so young?" I'm not sure. Most people don't have it till their mid 40s. If they ever do, my advice to you is keep your mouth shut. So the following year, I didn't keep my mouth shut. And the clinical psychiatrist who was in the hospital labeled me a manic depressive paranoid schizophrenic, but the same story. And put me on 2,000 micrograms of Thorazine a day. Should have been a lump in the corner. I was up playing ping pong, beating the male nurses. So what they prescribed for me and the way that they prescribed it had no effect other than I had a massive weight gain. I went in at 125. I came out at 175 6 weeks later. And so afraid of talking that I literally shook on the inside when I would be approached by others asking me what happened, because I'm a full disclosure kind of guy. You ask me a question, I'm going to give it to you, right? It may not connect with you at the time, and that's how I learned how to be, or at least I began to learn how to articulate things in a way that alleviated that angst for me. and made the listening audience a little more attentive. Because granted, the kind of stories I can tell about my own life experience sound incredulous if you haven't had some kind of direct experience that opens you up to that possibility.
Yes.
That is
So
so.
that's
That is
so that's how things began. And at 23, I was working 3 jobs, playing in a band as meat cutter and machinist. And the auto industry had decimated the Midwest. And so all the jobs disappeared in 3 days. I walk out on the front porch after the third one disappeared. And I looked up to the sun and I said, okay, I'm listening. Where do you want me to go? And I
right.
heard, and I literally heard Phoenix.
Interesting.
So the crash and burn and rise again cycles began shortly after that. I mean,
Uh,
the whole legend of the Phoenix and over again for me since I've been here since 1981. Now, what was interesting is that before we moved, I was walking through a metaphysical bookstore in Muncie, and this book falls off the shelf in front of me. Nobody else around. And I'm looking around. It's like, okay, this is weird. And I went over to pick up the book. It's Ruth Montgomery's Strangers Among Us. I'm like, interesting. Okay. So I picked the book up, turned it over to where it was open. And the first paragraph that I read, paraphrased, was something like the most common contactee experience in the Midwest in the late 50s and early 60s was the orange cigar shaped cloud. So that took me back to those experiences between 8 and 10 and just kind of, wow. It was like a domino effect.
yes. Yes.
So what do you do with that kind of stuff,
Right.
right?
That's interesting.
So I dropped out of school, got married, had a family, moved to Arizona, had 4 children. I started out in the aerospace industry as a machinist, then went into production control. At 26, I was in charge of $7 million a month in shipments, over 800 part numbers for an aerospace company. And so that kind of got me involved with systems and systems thinking and understanding how to get people, places, and things to work together better in order to meet the goals, right? And I excelled. I went to the top of the performance list for the department out of 35 people. And they came to me and said, what are you doing? Right. And, your supervisors show up at your cubicle and the first thing you think is, uh-oh, what did I do? Right. And they saw that look on my face and they said, no, we want to know what you do. You've been making some great accomplishments. And I said, it's interpersonal skills, right? You help other people get their jobs done and they help you. It's that simple. Well, in the manufacturing industry, and especially the aerospace, it's very militaristic because most of our contracts were defense. And so there's this command and control structure that if you don't give me what I need, I'm going to go to your supervisor or above or that kind of behavior. Well, that doesn't last. And it just causes, additional conflicts and problems in the production cycle. Right? Because everything slows down because they're resistant to doing things for others because of the behavior.
Exactly.
So I had non-complementary behavior. That's what I've learned it's called, in how I behaved in that structure. And it proved to be worthy. And I eventually suggested interpersonal skills classes for the department. And that went over like a lead balloon for a while. And then a year and a half later, after I left the company, got divorced, and I ran into the production or the purchasing department secretary, whose desk was right outside my cubicle. And she said, they finally instituted interpersonal skills classes plant-wide. And I'm like, thank God. Okay, well, I wasn't there to witness it, but at least it was done. Right? These are the kind of things that we don't always know what the effects are going to be, and yet you got to stand up and do what's right and take the risk.
Take the risk, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Wow.
often there's a lot of fear there.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown. You don't know what, you're taking a calculator and hoping
Right. And that hope is what drives you, the faith that you have in yourself from doing the right thing. There's a resonance. The Indians, I learned later, much later, because I always went by my gut feeling, my intuition. I'm a Cancer. I really feel deeply. I'm connected. I know that, obviously. And so how do you deal with that? Well, my first inkling was to check in, right? How's it feel? What's the sense here? Well, I learned later that the indigenous had a philosophy of three brains: the gut, the head, and the heart.
Right,
I'm
right.
sorry. Let me put them in order. First brain's the gut, second brain's the heart, and third brain's the head.
Yes.
There-
Sometimes we're bird brains because we're
Mhm.
just flying around in our heads, not realizing, right?
True.
So in the process, then now quantum physics has edified that by understanding that everything is all vibration. So how do we connect with that? Gut,
Right,
intuition, sensation, solar plexus, seat of the will, right? Now, is it your will, my will, the will, or some other mixture, right? Still happens from the solar plexus, whether you're pushing or pulling. Trick is to learn how to flow,
Yes.
right?
that's so important.
Now,
Learn
how
how to
that you move up to the heart. Once you get, once you're conscious enough, because these are conscious choices, decisions you need to make, must make in order to tune in. And it's done, like you were saying, Joan, the asking of the questions and being quiet,
Mhm.
right? We tend to try to answer the questions with the knowledge we have. It ain't working. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the question.
true.
Right?
Exactly.
Oh,
It's
so I see Karen going like this. You had something to pipe in with that? It'd be
No,
wonderful.
no. I'm just agreeing with you that a lot of times we tend to want to answer the question and not being silent and listen.
Right. And that's our nature. We're thinking
Yes.
beings.
yeah,
Yeah.
I found one of the other tasty tidbits I found after my white light experience was I was compelled to go to the library and look up the word Satan, right? Because this seemed it kind of threw everything in my face. And what I found was really intriguing. The very first reference in these huge university level dictionaries, right? The 2 volumes. First, the first entry was from the Greek thetan, Thetan, meaning thinker.
hmm, interesting.
So
That's interesting.
what that told me is we've got the adversary all turned around. It's not an outer one, it's an inner one.
Yes.
Hmm.
That's a
Right.
huge distinction and extremely powerful to grok,
Yes.
right? I use a Heinlein term there, right? So understanding that, uh, then from the gut, you go into the heart and you decide, oh, does this resonate?
Hmm.
Do I have what's called an empathic resonance with that? If not, why? And that's where you go into the head and you start asking the questions or making the choices as to what to do with that information, as
Right.
opposed to making the choice and shoving that information down in your body. And if it's incorrect or incongruent, it can cause dis-ease.
Yes. Yeah.
And if it's done over and over again over time, then you can really create some problems in your body because your body's made up mostly of water. Well, what do we, Masaru Emoto showed that you can, whatever you think and feel qualifies water. And the crystals that form from it can be very intricately beautiful or cacophonic,
Right.
Mhm.
like chaos,
Mhm.
depending on the thought that you give to the water. Well, think about how that affects your body. And you're not
Yes.
even aware of it because you don't have that kind of educational opportunity that provides you with the information in order to learn it.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
Mhm. This is
But
good stuff.
well, that you have
It's
really
fascinating to live like this, right?
ex-
Yes. Yes.
And I have to say, the sense of awe that comes from that and the building of the trust so that you don't have to worry. It's a fearlessness that eventually resides in you because you've got an experience of how it all works. So it goes from a belief system to an experience system. And most of the world is caught up in a belief system right now, and they're not willing to question it in order to get beyond it and find out what truly brings us together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here in this time, 47 years later for me, I've been through the aerospace industry. I taught high school for almost a decade, full charge of curriculums, built multiple intelligence learning centers. And then I left there and went into partnering workshops for building road and bridge construction. Therein is the concrete part of the concrete to cosmic, and facilitated stakeholder team meetings. So these were meetings of 20 to 80 people that were all, the contract had already been awarded. Projects are usually from 2 to 5 years long. And these guys come together in order to flesh out the details, learn how to work together better, and figure out what the issues are that are present, and then talk about them and resolve them ahead of time so that when they happen during the schedule, they know what to do and there's no work stoppage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so this gives them the ability, and here I am in the middle of the room coordinating all of this. And initially, when I first stepped in, I mean, you want to talk about needing to be fearless. I wasn't, because I was green and I wasn't sure that I knew all the techniques and could be present enough to be um, fruitful in the results. And so over time, I got really comfortable because I understand, the sensitivity, the empathy, the even the NLP side of reading the micro expressions and body language of the audience to make sure that they're on, they're present and with us rather than off thinking about something else or being in another agenda in their head. And in that process, the agendas that don't match with the flow of the project always appear, and then we've got to massage those in order, to create that holistic unit.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. You are giving so much good stuff, Zen. You
You
know?
know, I really appreciate the opportunity because a lot of this stuff I haven't been able to articulate in such truncated ways that make sense. I'm usually full of stories, and I tend to go off tangentially and fill in, a bunch of gaps that aren't necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Listening to you when you talk about the outer body experience, I've had quite a few. And one that really stand out, I think I was around the age of like 35. And I remember I saw myself left my body, and I had this spiral of white light, and I was just going through this spiral of white light, right? And I went tip up, it was very, very far away. And I remember when I reached to a particular spot that I saw a huge book, it was so huge, right? And I became scared. I became scared at that point. And then I
Okay, so what were
remember,
your thoughts then? Why were you scared? What was the thinking you had that prompted that fear?
I think because of never witnessing something like that before, right?
Mhm.
I think at that point in time it brings fear, right? But then I heard the whisper, and the whisper said, "Don't be scared." And I remember a chair was given to me, and I sat down in this chair. And then I there wasn't any hand that was moving the pages of this book, but the book just started to move. The pages just started to move. I could see it just moving, right?
Mhm.
And there were things that was written. Some of them I can't make it out, but some of them were symbols that I saw. And I still remember today some of those symbols because I one thing I normally do is whenever I get a dream, I would normally draw. If it's a symbol, I draw it.
Mhm.
If it's is something being said, I would write it out. So onto today, I have those symbols, and I remember those symbols onto today.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it was a beautiful feeling
Well, so
after. that voice said to me, don't be scared. It was a beautiful feeling, really, really
When you
beautiful feeling.
relax and you become open
Yes,
and you trust that there's this sense of, quite frankly,
yeah,
unconditional love,
yes,
Right.
and
Right.
yes,
and you're able to just acquiesce to it
yes,
or become submissive or surrender.
yes,
There's all kinds of words that you can put into that sensation of, if almost giving of yourself completely to the moment.
yes, yes,
Like that.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Thank you for
And that's
sharing.
Yeah,
that was awesome, Karen. And as you were talking about the symbols, it reminded me of an experience I had in a canyon in Pacific Palisades, California. I was living there during the time of the Twin Towers falling or coming down. I want to say falling. Um, that morning, now I'm living in the canyon. There's a house in the front of it. There's a 3-tier old um, highway depot with cement slabs, and I'm on the top one with an air mattress, a sleeping blanket, and a pillow. And I go to bed with crickets and frogs in the creek and the canyon and listening to the surf. I'd wake up to ravens and hawks. And this morning, I woke up, didn't open my eyes up because I had this torrent of symbols that were
yes,
flooding. And
Wow.
some of them I recognized, most of them I didn't. They were coming too fast. I couldn't keep up with them. However, and once it stopped, it's like, okay, something I don't have this. Something huge is going on. I don't know what it is. So I get up and I start walking down to the house, and I run into a gal that's living in a trailer on the property, the only other dwelling, and she's just hysterical. And so she explains to me that the first plane had hit,
Uh,
and the whole day was very interesting from there. I ended up walking down to the house, walk into our office in the basement of the house. We were putting an event together, or had ran an event in the canyon. It was called Gaia Fest. And we had about 2,000 people show up, made front page of Pacific Palisades newspaper as the Love Fest, right? And walked in the door, phone rings. It's a woman named Tanny Susanna, who was at that time the publicist for Linda Goodman's Star or Sun Signs. And she said, Zen, you got to turn the TV on, turn the radio on, see what's going on. And by that time, the second plane had hit. So I was just, I had no emotion. I was just numb to that. My direction was to go wake the people up that were there and take them back to this area that when I was first introduced to the house, that there was a portal that was created to help alleviate. There was a couple of dead people that were still hanging out in the house, and I felt them when I first introduced them, didn't realize that I had removed them. And then as we were in the back of the canyon, the person who was living there was telling my other friends about why or was telling us about how he got the house and what was there, including these two spirits that they knew had been murdered at one time. And I said, well, they're not there now. And he said, what do you mean? And then about that time, this friend of mine uh, had walked on, and he comes back and he says, I don't know what's going on. There's a couple of dead people over here that don't want to seem to leave. Now, we were about a third of the mile from the house. It was a big canyon. And I looked at the guy and I said, gee, told you. And my friend says, what are you talking about? So I had him explain the story, and I stepped away from the group and I turned to look where he had just come from. It was like 2:30 in the morning. And I look over there, don't see anything, close my eyes, don't see anything. I hear blow a portal. I'm like, wow, that's weird. I've never heard that before. Okay, why not? So I imagined blowing a portal, and I held my hands out as if to, send the energy, and I breathed, I blew, and all of a sudden my eyes are closed at this point. I see this molten shaft of light connect with the ground, about 10-foot diameter, and a parabola of white light opens. And I see these two spirit bodies, and they're looking at me like, and I get the sense of, who the heck are you? Right. And the words were a little different. And then the only thing that I was compelled to do was put my hand out toward the portal and say, you can go if you want. and
Okay.
shut up. And
Mhm.
so they looked at the portal, looked back at me, looked back to the portal, walked in. Now, that whole experience took about 15, 20 seconds. And I walked back to the group and then I said, okay, Stephen, a friend of mine that saw them, I said, take a look. And he said, wow, you're fast. Because they were gone. Now that portal remained open. I wasn't told to close it. And so I went to South America. I went to Chile for a month afterwards and then came back. And the first story that the guy that was living there tells me is, man, I saw these, droves of spirit bodies going towards that portal the whole time you were gone. So
Wow.
then we energized to help the folks that had been um, taken out, if you will, when they hit the towers, because one of the flights, most of them were coming to LA. So I was kind of informed to do this ritual and stuff, and I was given several perspectives of it, different layers or levels of, maybe 100 foot up, and then enough to where I could see the Southern California, and then I could see the entire United States, and I see this arc of light coming from New York and going into the portal, which was a shaft of light still. So, and then that arc of light spread out, engulfed the entire planet, came back, and then I guess truncated, stopped from New York, and I saw that just kind of absorb into the shaft of light, and then everything disappeared. Well, a few weeks later, there was a channeling that went around on the internet that described exactly what we did. So
Wow.
somebody was watching, and there was some evidence, right? Those kinds of stories are just so incredulous to most people. Like, do we really have this kind of ability? And we do.
Of course
We
we do.
we just don't recognize it
We
because
do.
we're too unwilling to step into the unknown, ask questions, and find out.
Exactly. Mm.
Yes.
Now, after COVID, right, this is where it shifted. For years, I went, okay, how's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? What do I need to do to prepare? How present do I need to be? All those kinds of questions, right? Because I was very attentive to this mission I was given as a teenager. Well, I got to a point where, okay, guys, my perfect partner hasn't shown up yet. I'm done. I'm not going to do anything more until I have somebody to share it with. Well, within a short time, I met a woman at a Kundalini yoga teacher training graduation who was from St. Petersburg, Russia. And within a month, I moved her mom, and her son in. And the following year, that was in October of 2016. And on the fall equinox of 2017, we were married on the base of Bell Rock in Sedona. Then
Beautiful.
when it's perfect combination, right? For me, my life being themed of harmony among people and planet, she was from St. Petersburg, Russia, our supposed enemy. And what better, configuration to help restore the harmony, right? Or at least find out how we can do that. And just amazing. And she's also a conservatory trained pianist. So she's a world-class pianist and understands music, was taught about the solfeggio tones when she was 6 years old. And just recently, the solfeggio tones have come out in the esoteric crowd, if you will, is tuning into those 9 levels of frequencies that supposedly assist our evolutionary process. And they do, right? It's all frequency. And so she had all this understanding. Um, I was able to share my story with her, and she didn't freak out. Matter of fact, she has her own similar. And then COVID hit. And the very first time that the lockdown happened here in Arizona, it was March of 2021 or 2020. I turned to her and I said, I really hope this obsession on self-hygiene and sequestration gets people to turn inward and figure out who they are. Start asking them.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And I knew it wasn't going to happen for everybody because there's a lot of fear present
Sure.
through the narrative, false as it may be, knowing now the outcomes. However, it happened. And there was a lot of groups that started forming. I noticed that, a lot of more virtual groups beginning to appear online of people looking to each other, realizing, hey, we can't be separate regardless of this, and we need to figure out how to work together better and change all of this.
Yes.
Well, lo and behold, unknown to me at that point, Live and Let Live was launched in 2020, August of 2020. In April of 2021, my wife Luba comes to me. Luba actually means love in Russian. So I did find my true love, twin flame, all, all of that is there. And so she comes to me and says, you really need to start talking to people again. I encourage you to do so. Well, what she was referencing was a TV show that I did back in the 90s called One World, where I talked to people about how they got where they were at, what prompted them to do what they're doing from both inner and outer perspectives, and then what fears they encounter. So we looked at the things that keep us afraid, angry, ignorant, and immobile, and kind of peel back the layers as to how they work through them, and to offer examples to the audiences that possibilities, right? So 120 shows over 2.5 years. And so she comes to me and I'm like, that was a perfect time because I was just longing to do that. However, I knew it was going to be a labor of love and no financial rewards whatsoever were going to come from it. And so I launched. I was part of a leadership and systems transformation symposium that I was able to cherry pick some of the participants, and they agreed to come on initially. And so we began One World in a New World, and I launched the first show on June 1st of 2021. January of 2022, I interview Mark Victor, who's a defense attorney and the founder of Live and Let Live, global peace movement. And that was mid-January. 1st of February, we have and I found out about Live and Let Live. And then so we had lunch a few weeks later. He invited me to participate. I said yes. I said, I've got the skill set for a executive director. If you need one. I had one in Bogota at the time. And then in beginning of March, he contacts me and he says, hey, I've got a gal over in Hawaii that wants to step up too. Would you consider working with her as co-directors? And I said, absolutely. That's the perfect management scenario where you have masculine and feminine energy at the top of the organization, right? That is the new way, is what I told him. And so he said, okay, well, I went to connect with her, talk with her over Zoom, get to know her, see if you guys are compatible. Turns out we just had this amazing complementary skill set. And so we said, okay, let's do it. And then we began to peel back the layers of what needed to be present in the organization that wasn't. And one of the first things we found was that the nonprofit status was the non-operating foundation instead of a public charity. And so our fundraising was curtailed for 8 months while we got all that switched around. Meanwhile, we created the operational structure, laid out a specific plan, figured out goals and objectives, talked to all the chapter leaders. There were 31 chapters in 19 countries when we came in. Wow. So the first thing we did was have meetings with all the chapter leaders, and several meetings at different times to incorporate the world clock. And we found out that, the message, live and let live, right? 2 pieces, live, let live. Moral, be a better human. Legal, don't be an aggressor. So the short-term goal is to build community around what it means to be a good human and unpack all of those things. And those are going to come in various levels depending on your level of awareness, right? And then the don't be an aggressor side, the legal side, our goal, long-term goal, is to change the laws and legislation to eliminate aggression, which could possibly make war illegal. Now, that's a future goal. We have to, right? As a planetary civilization, we need to take care of ourselves. And the only way to do that is through the legal system, because that's what everybody pays attention to. Now, that's a tough road. And most people will say, no, it's like, get behind me, Satan. Right? Because they
Yes.
feel that energy from it. It's corrupt
Yes.
beyond imagination. So how do we fix that? Well, we gather together. We make a choice that, yeah, eventually we're going to get to doing this. And then those people who are willing to step up come to the surface over time. Well, this is a process, right? It's not, we're going to solve it tomorrow. This is a process. Things didn't happen. They aren't in the shape they are from from something that happened yesterday.
Yes.
It takes
Right?
time.
It
It
does,
really
and it's okay, right?
does.
The minute you start pointing fingers, you got 3 of them coming back at you, so you better be prepared with at least selection of solutions for the situation you're pointing at,
Mm-hmm.
or don't point.
Mm-hmm.
Ex-
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely right.
It's worthless conversation to commiserate about the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon French. So how do you do that? Well, you create conversations, you set parameters, you create topics, you market your thing. So we're in that process of creating uh, the social messaging that has the tone and voice that brings, that is welcoming and inviting. And then we've got lounges, we've got for the conversations to evolve that have hosts from different areas of expertise so that we can flesh all those things out, have open, psychologically safe and intellectually humble conversations. And then we have a social enterprise component that offers the volunteer to earner and learner transition, which gives people the opportunity to do events, fundraise, share in the profits, and also help us,
Mm-hmm.
and allows, peace ascends through prosperity.
Yes.
Right? We've been considering we've been thinking about sustainability. We need to think about thrivability, right? The joy, the happiness that is present in this sensation of awe that we learn from practicing simple principles.
Right. That's what really matters. The simple principles that can help us. I just want to step back a little bit and talk about, because you took us on a great journey this morning. You drop a lot of nuggets and tell us different things, but just talk about trusting, talk about peace, and talking about awareness. And can you tell us like one person who might be struggling at this point in time because they're having the vision, they're seeing the light, they're hearing a lot of whispers, and a lot of things is dropping into their spirit, and at that moment they really does not understand. What would you say to that person at this point in
Well,
time
I
when?
would I would suggest, I had a 28-year dream come true with an interview with Jeffrey Mishlove. Jeffrey Mishlove and Bill Moyers were the two individuals I wanted to emulate when I first started One World in 1990. And I hope someday to be worthy of an interview with one of them. 2018, it happened with Jeffrey. We did not only one conversation, we had 3. And it happened after he reached out to me to promote a video, an interview with Jason Georgiani about the Greys. And I have one of my websites, Ufology Press. So he reached out through the voicemail system there, the first message in 7 years. And he says, hey, I recognize his voice right away before he introduced himself. And so my heart just starts like, oh, here it comes, right? And so he says, hey, I just did this interview. Could you look at it? I think your audience would be interested and help promote it. Then see what you can do. So I did send him the link with a blog that I'd written and a PDF copy of my book, Stubbing My Toe on Purpose. 3 days later, I get an email back, hey, would you like to come talk about it? So there were 3 interviews of his title choice. One was A New World Order. One was Sociology of Ufology. And the third, which I'm bringing back to the answer to your question, is on hearing voices.
Voices. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mhm.
Right. So this is a half hour, 40-minute conversation that will offer some solace to those who are having those experiences and not knowing what to do with them. Jeffrey asked some really great questions. You can find it on YouTube by searching New Thinking Aloud and my name, Zen Benefiel.
Mhm.
So you'll get all three when those show up. Pay attention to the one that says On Hearing Voices.
Right.
You know, as we go through life, we go through different stages.
Hmm.
And some stages are very tough than others. But when we really come to that awareness and really understand our purpose here, when we could sit and when we could listen and go within, the magic happens.
It is. There is where it is, really.
Well, it seems like magic. It's actually science.
Yeah,
It
you
really
know,
is.
yeah,
And just the same as the scientific method proving hypotheses, right?
hmm
This proves the process.
Hmm.
Everything is a process.
It is. Certainly is.
When we can recognize, oh, okay, everything's a process, it's temporary and transitory, then we can take a breath and go, oh,
yeah,
okay, good. I don't have to go through this my entire life, right?
right.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it. It's when you're in the throes of depression, of being dismissed and rejected and violated and betrayed and all those kinds of things that happen at certain points of our life, and we all have those,
hmm
Of course. Of course.
right? The trick is not to get caught up in that. Recognize you created it for your own growth.
Right,
That's a tough one to swallow,
right.
right? Don't
Yes,
judge, don't condemn,
Don't condemn.
yes,
embrace, be thankful, have the gratitude for the opportunity to
yes.
challenge yourself to grow.
That's the key.
Absolutely.
That-
And when you surrender,
That's the key.
when
Now,
you
the surrender part's scary.
surrender,
That's the key.
It is. And it's the scariest part of it because you release to the unknown and you have to have that faith, love,
Trust.
and trust, right? And that's the first. Trinity affects the fractal is everywhere, right? The faith, love, and trust, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right? And even most religions have that Trinity in place. Then there's also where you put your attention,
right?
intention,
Mhm.
and interaction.
Absolutely. I love that.
Right?
Love that. Yeah.
So the law of
So,
attraction reveals that what you think and feel, you become or you attract. All right. Then what? Well, you got to have the interaction.
mhm.
hmm
So where you put your focus of attention, intention, and then interact accordingly, you're going to find the magic everywhere.
Yes, yes.
And I'm a living, breathing human being example of it.
Yep.
Mm.
Same here.
Yeah, same here too. And I think that is the key because those are the fundamentals of living.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that to be full of myself and be all egotistical. No, it's the process of ego is not bad, right?
No, it's not
We're
bad.
in the process of learning how to take ego to we go,
Mm,
Yes,
mm.
yes.
right? And that's a simple phrase just to think about. It sounds kind of corny, right? I can be kind of corny. I grew up in the Midwest, all right? And the truth
Yes.
is there. Now, that gift was given to me by a dear friend who's now on the other side. He went by Michael Valentine Zamoro. He was written up in Time magazine in the March 71 issue as a prophet of his own time. He started the waterbed industry in LA. So he learned a lot from that. Great success. Life did a full spread of his place on Maui the following year in June, I think, of 72. had pictures of the 8 water beds and scantily clad women on them. Part of his group marriage. Right? He went that far. So he says to me one day, he says, there really is no ego without we go. Because
Mhm.
once you find this path, you realize it's not about you.
Right. Yeah.
And it's all about you.
Yes.
Right. So it's like the law of one that many people may be familiar with, where it states you're either service to self or service to others. So that's the separative, the bipolar
Mhm.
side of it. Well, the reality is the greatest service to self is service to others. So
Yes.
then you bring those two together in a holistic picture that then you can begin to ask the questions, oh, how do I do this? What's up? And what's coming? And then the thing that we often miss is that we're looking to the horizon for things instead of looking right in front of us. So we
Yeah.
miss what's right there. And that simple acknowledgement realization offers opportunity to engage in the moment fully by, chopping wood and carrying water, if you will. And when you're in that place and you're totally focused with your attention, intention, and interaction, then your mind opens from the singular linear version to a non-linear and often non-local, because we know now the mind is non-local. The brain is local. The brain's the transceiver. The non-local mind feeds us depending on how open we are to it, right? The
Right.
non-local, you could call it God.
Mhm.
You can call it source.
Mhm.
There are many different names, Allah, um,
Divine.
right? The divine,
Mhm.
all of those things. It's that's why and I think in the Jewish tradition or the Kabbalah, that it's the nameless one,
Yes.
Right.
right? Because you
Is
can't. We try to put names on stuff. We're human beings. We try to label and categorize.
right. But we just have to understand that outside of us there is that power that we
Yeah.
can pull off. And I just want to step back a little bit, and I like how you spoke about the life there. It's a process, and when you have the understanding that there is a process, it teaches you patient understanding and knowing that
Mhm.
it's okay. But then you have to understand that it takes time for you to attain whatever, and as you continue to evolve, then that understanding come to be for you.
Therein, patience is a virtue.
Mhm.
True. We learn.
Mhm.
Oh,
And be
Mhm.
patient with yourself. That's the deal.
oh, the key.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yes.
show yourself love and compassion, and move with grace. I like you how you talk about intention. Be intentional, or set intentions.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's very
Powerful.
important.
And from what we've learned, our past processing and programming has been this narrative of self-deprecation. You're
Yes.
not enough. You'll never be
Yes.
enough. You're an imposter. You're never going to, amount to anything, all that kind of stuff. And that comes from outer and turns inward.
Hmm.
So that's the narrative that you just got to eliminate. Well, how do you do that? You pay attention to what you're thinking.
And what you're saying,
Right. Words that
how
come
you,
out of your mouth are powerful. Words cast
Yes.
spells.
yes,
Yes.
how we self talk,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
ourselves, so we can stand strong, being graceful, being positive, and show up with our power. But it's how we speak to ourselves that really matters daily.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So important.
Not just daily, moment to moment.
True.
Moment, but
Moment to moment. That's absolutely right.
I'd like to
moment.
share a couple of techniques that I use. One for quieting, right? When you're feeling anxious, put your fingertips together and focus on feeling your heartbeat in your fingertips and breathe
Mm,
naturally. Let your breathing deepen a little bit and just focus on feeling your heartbeat in your fingertips. Well, what happens? As soon as you feel your heartbeat in your fingertips, you're out of your head,
out of your head,
Mhm.
exactly.
right? You're
That's
in
beautiful.
that moment. Now, the more you can practice that, the more quiet you and attentive to the inner voice you can become.
Mhm.
The other thing is that when you notice that you're going down a negative thought form path in your head, right? You're thinking, right? As soon as you recognize that, what I do is I immediately think I. So the process, I breathe in I exhale M. Well, in that moment of recognition and just using the I, right, you start with a vibration that's very high to begin with in the I. And as you close with the I, it naturally goes up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that vibratory rate cancels everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the M, if when you get to that, I don't always go there because once I stop it, then I gain control of my mind again and I go another direction. Well, with the M, right? When you say that, whether you're saying it or internalizing it silently, it brings that vibratory rate into your
Mm-hmm.
body.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the Om,
Right.
right?
Right.
You feel it. And
Mm-hmm.
the I opens you up, and the M brings it into your body.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Yes.
simple.
Very.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
no religion, there's no belief system, there's
Right.
just a simple practice and realization that it works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because especially in this time where there's so much challenges in different spaces, it's good to work on yourself. Take the time, pause, and use this technique to quiet your mind and put you in a space and really put you in a space of Zen.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Funny thing about that name. All right. I'm going to share this because it's like, how do you get that? Right. It brings up the question. So, part of being an orphan and adopted and giving the name, my adopted name was Bruce Benefiel. So, in 1988, I going through a divorce. I've got a guest house. A friend of mine's living in the guest house temporarily. He and I go to a full moon meditation, vegetarian potluck and meditation using Tibetan bowls and a soliloquy from uh, Alice Bailey. And so afterwards, we come back and we're talking and really deep conversations, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we fall silent. I close my eyes and I go inside and I ask the question, who am I?
Yes.
And I'll be darned if I heard his chair move. I opened my eyes up, turned to look at him. He says, "You are Zendor." I didn't say a word, right? And he has this immediate response. Well, at the same instant, my second sight kicks on, eyes open, and I see this starscape with a thick, huge stone arched doorway and a thick wooden door slowly opening towards me. And I hear, "Door to what is?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, what do I do with this now?" So I tell him. And then I put it on the shelf. That was 1988. 1990, I get the opportunity to produce One World. So I used Zendor as my subheading. 6, 7 shows in, one of the guys on the set who is sick, his name's Sat Khalsa, rest in peace, dude. He just passed recently. He calls me Zen one night. And it just cascaded from there. I resisted it for a while because I had issues with people changing their names in the 70s. And so here I am faced with that. I've never changed it legally. However, everybody's called me Zen since 1990. And it's just an amazing challenge to live, first of all, and really cool name.
Yeah.
True. True.
Yeah.
Very. It's
It
beautiful.
when we all share our story, we could really see the beauty in our lives. When we share our story, it's amazing. It's beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the great thing about counseling, right? That we don't really think about. It's not what the counselor says to us, it's the questions they ask that allow us to speak and hear our own voice.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that good stuff out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they
And
don't know you, right?
no,
That some can feel that there are those who have the empathic an intuitive sense that they've developed, right? It's just like any talent that we're given. I think we've all got it, but certain people are more
Right.
inclined to do so.
Mhm.
So with that, still, it's you. You're processing you always. And,
Always.
and
Sure.
then, and then you get to the place of processing we.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you figure out, oh, I am, and now you can feel we are, right?
Yes.
And now you understand why those are in my parenthetical phrase at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? I
Yes.
am, we are.
Yes.
And that's how I flip the whole pronoun thing. It's like, oh, all right, oh, what's this Michigas, right? So, and when you think about it, I am. What else
Yes.
do you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't label yourself beyond that because there's all kinds of possibilities to coagulate.
True.
Yeah.
True. So,
And we get this beautiful chance to be here and to be a collective and come together as one and share. That's the beauty that we have. And
Right.
many of us don't see it that way. And
Well,
it's
we've been
sad.
programmed not to because of
Yeah.
the separative systems that are in place to keep us in the command and control structure that was designed for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, not a bad thing. Every planetary civilization evolves through certain maturation stages, and
Yes.
so that also tends to equate to the changing of ages. Like we're in the Piscean, we're coming out of the Piscean age,
Yes.
and we're transitioning into the Aquarian age. Now,
Yeah.
according to the Mayan calendar, as one
Right.
reference, we had the winter solstice of 2012, which was the apex of a 50-year window
Window. Yeah.
between ages. I had the opportunity, I met Jose Arguez and we became friends, and another one, rest in peace, dude. Um, and the thing is, they're really, the consciousness remains. You can still talk to people after they're gone. All you got to do is picture their
Right.
face and look into their eyes,
Yes.
right? And it's just, you can do that. You just have trust that the process works.
Yes.
So at any rate, um, there was a massive increase of consciousness and information, paralleling the information curve, that the apex was the solstice of 2012. So, and you look around, you see all the materials and people and places and things that came up during that period. Well, then what? Right now we've got all this, we've got this new awareness, this new living awareness. What do we do with it? Well, first of all, once you have it, you're it. You carry it everywhere. Like T. Harv Eker says, what you do anywhere, you do everywhere. You
Sure.
just do not realize it. So you carry this energy with you, and you meet other people, places, and you go and you get involved with things. And so you carry it into your organization or your company, or your church or wherever. And people change around you as a result.
right. Mm-hmm.
So then what happens? Well, on a massive scale, all of the things that have no empathic resonance with that vibratory bandwidth, let's say, they rise to the surface
Mm-hmm.
for view,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we
Right.
see all the systems that are awry, and it's not the systems that are awry, it's the leadership and management of them.
Right.
What do we need to do?
Absolutely.
We need to change that. So how do you do that? Well, you use things like the ISO 26,000 social responsibility standards, and you take them into your company and you say, hey, can we do something with this? And you start a grassroots movement, because it's a voluntary effort to raise the standards of what the company does,
Mm-hmm.
right? B Corps are an example of how you include the mission and vision for community activity now. Then once that's done, then in other areas like political, where, as a global peace movement, we have to deal with the bottom line, hardest things and the most challenging in order to assist the evolution of the global system. And that means that you got to get involved with politics and law and legislation. It's like sales. It's not a bad word, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's how we sell all the time. We're selling ourselves to ourselves, as
Yes.
well as others. It's that empathic resonance that we then transfer to another. That's the whole sales process. You're
Okay.
transferring enthusiasm. Well, if you're not enthused about what you're selling, stop,
Right.
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 Exactly.
right?
Right.
Right.
Find something else. If you're not having fun with what you're doing, stop.
Stop.
Right. Right.
Change, change it. Change again.
Right.
Because you have to feel, but whatever you're doing, it's
Oh, we
always
can't have fun, but we can't be joyful. We can't be happy with, the minuscule efforts that we make in our work environment sometimes where people feel unappreciated, let alone
mm,
accepted, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So if that's your feeling, change it. Find something else,
Absolutely.
yes.
right?
That's
And it'll show up.
Absolutely.
it well. Well,
Wow.
you have really shared with us today and
Yeah, I have
take us
no
on.
idea where the time went.
We'll have you back. We'll
You
have
will be coming back.
we will have you back because you've dropped a lot of nuggets, a lot of certain things, and to guide and help all of us to continue life journey with a new sense of knowing, trusting, understanding it's a process
Mhm.
that would help us through this thing called life.
Yeah, absolutely right. And
Be light. Let our light continue to illuminate and shine and help others as well and guide us. Let that
yeah,
Absolutely.
be our
thank you so much.
It's an honor and tremendously humbling to be in a place where I can share that
mhm,
and be heard because as a teenager nobody wanted to listen. I felt so alone, even ashamed for a
mhm,
while. And then lo and behold, in 2010, the same experience that put me in the hospital got me an audience with the International Association for Near Death Studies as a speaker at their annual conference.
mhm.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, as you said, it's a process, and it as we continue to evolve, it leads us in different spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying yes to the invitation. Thank you
We-
for showing up. Thank you for being here and helping us to understand life in depth and the
mhm.
journey that we all have to walk.
And
Thank
I'd
you.
invite everyone to check out liveandletlive.org.
Yes.
If this is intriguing to you and you'd like to, get to know me better or work with me, by all
Okay.
means, join the movement. We've got
Yeah.
some, great things to happen, and it's all able to do so because of you.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
connect with him.
Yes. So connect with Zen. All his social handles is in the comments. Just reach out to him and connect with him, and he could
Yeah.
able to take you on this journey. If you have questions, you feel free to ask him the questions and he will answer your questions. Thank you so much to the
Yes.
audience today for taking the time and sitting with us today. I hope you guys was taking the notes because there's a lot of nuggets was being given to us today. And I hope you guys take notes and continue to believe in yourself, continue to connect with yourself because you have all the answers within yourself. There is light within you. The world needs your light. Continue to shine.
And just know
Zen,
you.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you so much.
namaste and in lak'ech.
Namaste.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you all. Thank you.